everyone. So I just finished creating a video for my new class, Expanding Landscapes, where I was just sort of sharing with the students some color mixing ideas and stuff that we're going to be using throughout the class. But anyways, I ended up with this sort of blobbed up, it's just a canvas board that I used to mix on. And now I've got this sort of crazy blobby looking mess. So I thought it might be fun to film the process as I'm going to try and take this and turn it into a cute little floral painting. And I thought, how fun would it be to take you along for the journey? So here we go. So as you can see, I've just started off, it's just sort of like a palette, and I'm just going to grab, I've got this little filbert brush here. And some of this is dry, some of it is wet. So I'm just going to start by kind of filling in down here some of this greeny area. Now some of the pink is mixing in, that's okay. So just getting lots of white on my brush. And see, it's just mixing with that blue and giving us some, maybe we pull a bit of that blue up and around in here. So already I'm starting to see, maybe some of these big blobs eventually can be like flowers, but maybe not, we'll see. All right, I'm just gonna set that brush aside. I've got this little piece of charcoal here. I'm gonna use that. Try not to shake the table too much here. But you can see I can draw right into that paint there. And create sort of a little vase. I see, created some cool kind of lines in there. I like that. Okay, now I've got this, it's all very blue, so I'm just gonna take a little quinacridone gold. Not rinsing my brush. Just gonna get that loaded up there. And look, it's this just really kind of pretty green color. What if we brought some of that in around throughout? And I kind of like the vase over here. I kind of want to pull it over a bit here. So I'm just going to get a little bit more white on my brush. Again, I'm not rinsing my brush. Just going to go right for it. And let's just get a little bit over there. Just going to wipe the excess paint off my brush, but I'm still not rinsing it. A little more white. Let's bring in a little bit more white over here. Okay, now I'm going to set that brush aside and get that little piece of charcoal again. And what if we drew in some sort of leafy shapes? See, it's sort of half drawing in the paint and half and just pushing the paint out of the way. And then whenever it reaches a spot of dry canvas, it actually leaves a little bit of that charcoal behind, which is super cool. All right, let's get some more pinks and stuff in there. So I'm gonna get a little cadmium red medium hue, just a little bit, and get another little brush here. Gonna get some white on there, and that's gonna give us a pretty intense little bit of pink here, but let's use a little bit of that. So just some little touches of that really intense pink throughout. Rinse my brush. Now we can add to that a little bit of raw umber and a little bit more white. Oh, that's a little bit more brown than I was aiming for, but you know what? Let's use a little bit of that. Why not? A little bit of muted color never hurt anyone. All right, now let's get a little bit more of that cadmium red though. And so it's given us a less intense, sort of darker shade of pink. We can kind of pull around, get a little bit of white. And maybe a little bit more. What if we had a little bit of that down there? Whoops. Dipped my paintbrush into my white paint instead of the water. All right, a little more white. Let's get a little more white. Really sloppy. Make this really wonderful textured piece here. Okay, setting that one aside. I'm gonna grab this little bristly brush and get some quinacridone gold. And just gonna dip my little bristle brush into the white and mix it with that gold, and look at it, gives us this beautiful, beautiful yellow. And now I've got a bit of yellow in here, so let's add to that. Get a little more white on there. Make a slightly lighter shade of yellow. We can kind of mix that in there. And now, you know what I'm going to have to do is I think I'm going to have to set it aside and let some of these layers dry. Before I do that, I'm just going to get another little brush, a little more white. I kind of want to come around these leaves here. And let's actually grab that little piece of charcoal. Where'd you go, little charcoal? Ah, there it is. A piece of charcoal. Let's add in some sort of flowery shapes with that. Maybe back up to our leaf. A little more intensity in there. There we go. Okay, now let's set this piece aside and let it dry for a little bit. And then when I come back, I can do some stuff to sort of punch it up. Okay, so now I've given this piece a little time to dry. There's still some wet spots, but this is just for fun, so let's just keep going. So I'm just going to grab a nice clean brush out of the water there, just this little filbert guy. And I just want to, intensify some of those pinks, so I'm just going to get some of that cadmium red again. And actually, we've still got some of this wet on the palette, so let's just mix a bit into there, and it's just going to give us a little more intensity. And I can use that to just sort of add some little hints of that more intense color throughout. Okay, and rinse off that brush again. And I want to get that yellow a little more bold. Oh, looks like there's some green on my brush here. I'm just going to get a little more yellow in there. There we go. A little darker even again. It looks like a little bit of pink is still on my brush there. That's okay. And take a little bit of that and let's just sweep that on there. And I see some hints of yellow down in here, so why don't we add just some sort of spots throughout. Get a little bit more white on my brush. And maybe just near those spots, add some of that lighter yellow. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna put that brush aside and grab a fresh brush. get a little bit more white back in here. So I'm just going to get some white paint on my brush, and just in here I've got some white a white area. Just going to add a little white around it, maybe another bit of white up here, maybe a little white down here and over here. Just really loose, just wherever I feel like it. Maybe a little bit more white on my brush. Oh, I got some pink on there. This is what I get for not rinsing my water, changing my water enough. No biggie though. Just thinking maybe kind of like the blue showing through down here. But a little more white's just gonna make those flowers pop just a little bit more, you know? So I'm just kind of coming in around all of the flowers and adding in some of that white. Maybe we'll put a little more white kind of in there. And actually, I feel like if I got a little bit of white kind of coming in here, give that vase a little more height, which I kind of like the idea of. And now it's kind of crooked, but I like it, so I'm going to leave it like that. That little bit of crookedness there in the vase. And I'm not rinsing my brush, but I'm going to grab a little more of the pink. I liked this sort of tulipy shape we had in here, but I kind of lost it a little, so I can do that and just grab my charcoal again. And I can kind of come around and draw it back in there. And then now I think we need a little bit more intensity in some of our greens. Just how I'm feeling. So I'm gonna grab a little, let's do some like teal, something fun. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of phthalo turquoise and some burnt sienna and mix those together, and it's gonna give us this really deep dark teal. Maybe a little bit more turquoise, just to lighten it up a bit there. And what if I kind of came in and just added some hints of that nice dark turquoise throughout. And then, you know, we can add a little bit of yellow to it, since it's next to the yellow on my palette. Maybe a little bit down. Maybe this vase is more of a green glass vase. And then maybe just a little bit more turquoise. I'm not going to rinse my brush. I'm going to wipe off the excess paint, but I'm not going to rinse it because I do want to just get a little bit of that other color mixed in there. It's just going to give us this really turquoise. Maybe we can just add in a few little hints of that. All right. Now that pink on that flower is still looking just a little bit more muted than I want it. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that cadmium red again. Dip my bristles in it, just get a little bit of the red, then dip them into this part of the other paint I already have on there, and just get a little bit more of that intense pink again. And we can just maybe actually just gonna grab a little white on my brush. That cadmium red. Oh, it makes such a pretty color. There we go. All right, now I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to go back to, we have our nice bristly brush here. It was sitting in the white, so it's nice and loaded up. I'm just going to create a really, it's got a little bit of yellow in it. I like that. Maybe a little too much yellow. It's just paint, right? You can always change your mind. You can always shift what you're doing. Right now the paint's really, really wet, so I've kind of got to be mindful of where I'm putting my color. See if I kind of stipple in here, it gives us this lovely texture. All right, oops. Just going to give this a lift, take a little bit of a look at it. I think it's looking pretty good. It needs a few little extra finishing touches, but for right now, I'm going to set it aside, let these layers dry, and then I can throw some finishing touches on there and we'll be all done. All right, you know, I kind of lied. I got this piece over. I was given it a little blast with the hairdryer to kind of speed things up, and I was just like, no, gosh, this is just looking like a big old muddy mess. So I'm not finished with it. We're not doing finishing touches just yet. That's okay. That's the way it goes sometimes. I'm gonna instead, this is just looking like a big old box on top of a little stem here. So I want to actually like do some kind of crazy stuff here. Sometimes you've just got to like be crazy. Now this paint isn't nearly dry enough. And that's okay. We're going to work with it. And get some more white on there. We're going to change this up and pull that white in a little bit more up here. We're going to take out some of that there. Just sort of taking away now. All right, I'm actually feeling happier already. It's all about taking away, adding. These are a little more yellow down here than I wanted them. I'm going to pull them back to white. What if we just take that right out? Let me take that right out. I'm just going to put my brush aside. I've got that little charcoal, which is all covered in wet paint now. But let me take that out and then created some other little flowery shapes in there. Yeah, those are a little more interesting. I'm going to grab this palette knife here. And I'm going to get some paint on it, white paint. And then let's and what if we also scraped out some of this? Move that aside. Get my little charcoal guy again. And a little Payne's Gray. I've got some yellow on my canvas here. I'm just gonna Just adding and taking away. Give it a tilt up. You know, it might sound crazy, but this is about more where I'd like to see this one go. I get a little bit of quinacridone magenta. This is might be a bit crazy. I'm adding in like crazy extra colors. I'm just gonna put it right on my finger. And what if we just sort of, oh yeah, see how that just changed up the whole thing. Because that paint's nice and wet. You can get a little bit of quinacridone gold, mix it with the quinacridone magenta, and then maybe in a little bit into there. I've regressed into full-on finger painting, but a little bit around that little guy there, maybe some up there. All right. And let's get some more intense yellow. I've got my quinacridone gold here. Got a little white on my brush. Just gonna, well, my brush is just, sometimes the fingers are just best. All right, and then what if we took the turquoise and actually change the color of the vase again. And add in that little bit of and I got a little white on my brush, bring a little color down onto the bottom there. And a little bit more. Like, this painting is going to be thick. Just feeling indecisive today. I've been painting abstracts for the last couple of weeks, doing my class, and you know, it affects you. It makes it not as easy to tighten back up here. All right, just gonna get one more blob of white on there. All right. Just get a little more texture back in down here. And you know what? It is a big old sloppy mess, but when it is dry and in a frame, this is going to be pretty glorious, I think. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this fun little intuitive journey to a floral from a paint palette, and thanks so much for watching.